Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the LSR podcast. This is episode number 17, where we have the news of the week and sometimes a little bit more with some of the brightest minds in the gaming industry. This week, I am Adam Candy, sitting in for your regular host, Matt Brown, and I am joined by two of those bright minds, Dustin Gauker and Eric Ramsey, as we catch up with some summer news. We were on a bit of our summer vacation, guys. Have you had a good time?
Yeah, sorry. What have we been gone for? 2 weeks we've missed? We owe everyone a big apology for our slacking off over here.
I feel like maybe we can just give them an extra special, really good episode of the LSR podcast, and hopefully that'll be enough to make it up to everyone. We hope everyone will subscribe, rate, and review in the App Store. We know we are available in all of the usual places that you find podcasts, and we should just dive on into this thing with a big piece of news, but maybe not the piece of news the way we anticipated it earlier this year. The state of New York has launched sports betting, and Eric, it is retail only.
Yeah, it's maybe big news if you happen to live in Syracuse or Buffalo or one of the upstate population centers, but not really big statewide news. This is retail only sports betting at the 4 upstate commercial casinos plus the tribal casinos. It's not going to be the best industry, but it has been a long time coming. This law has been on the books since 2013 as part of a casino expansion, obviously activated by the Supreme Court when they overturned PASPA last year. So, yeah, we've been waiting 6 or 7 years, at least 16 months since PASPA fell for sports betting in New York. We finally have it. Rivers near Schenectady was the first to open last Tuesday. And then Tioga Downs has a FanDuel sportsbook that opened Wednesday. They should be done testing on Friday. So folks in the upstate region will have their first 2 options to bet on sports in the area. We also understand that the tribal casinos that are partnered with Caesars will be opening their books on property August 1st. So options are rolling out into New York. Still no mobile, but there are a couple spots now to bet on sports at least.
For those of you who are not residents or former residents of the great state of New York, like Eric and me, Schenectady, upstate, about a 3-ish hour drive to reach that locale to get to the sports book. And Dustin, we talked about the fact that it has been almost 6 years coming for New York, but of course, mobile sports betting, there were attempts in the legislature this year to get it done, and of course, we don't have that, so could be a bit of a limited launch.
Yeah, I mean, this was almost met with a collective yawn, I think, in sports betting land. Like, it's cool that there's sports books in New York for sure, but with the hope that they were going to have online this year, these sports books that are opening up are not really that close to New York. You're not getting that population base. So yeah, it's while yes, this is the 10th state that's operated, it will have some sort of legal sports betting. We're not really a full launch. We're waiting for next year when the legislature will take another stab at legalizing online. Until then, New York City residents will go to FanDuel Sportsbook in New Jersey. They'll go across the border, bet online. We know in New Jersey, if you've heard this stat before, 80% of wagers are online. So New York is just missing out on tons of revenue, tons of conversion from the black market, etc. So yeah, while it's cool, it's more of a footnote than really a full launch of sports betting.
Well, to that end, Eric, we know that the New York State Gaming Commission might be jumping in with a study that was prompted by the legislature to try to convince Governor Andrew Cuomo of the necessity of mobile.
Yeah, I guess this is maybe the third best result that could have come from the session, either passing a law or initiating the referendum process, or instead we're just going to study the issue for the next year. The Gaming Commission wants to, I think has already drafted a request for proposals to, basically they want a market study of the appetite for expanded New York sports betting and the potential impacts on the market. This is probably to sort of try to debunk Governor Cuomo's supposition that sports betting revenue is negligible. He sort of argued that what New Jersey is making from sports betting is a drop in the bucket. So the state officials are going to explore that and find out what the true benefits and risks are of legal sports betting.
Well, we shall see if there's any success in pushing the mobile ball along in New York, and maybe the results out of New Jersey, where Dustin gave you the 80% stat. And of course, the state of Pennsylvania has now gone mobile as well. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Those could be some revenue figures that give New York a little bit more information as to what they might be missing out on. Dustin, every now and then we like to throw ourselves into the Wayback Machine and talk about a little something called daily fantasy sports. And apparently we might be doing a version of a battle that we just saw in Illinois in New York.
Yeah, there's this lawsuit that's been going on basically as long as daily fantasy sports has been legalized in New York. Obviously, a lot of backstory there. The Attorney General once issued cease and desist orders to DraftKings and FanDuel, and then the state legalized DFS in the wake of that. And right after that, that triggered a lawsuit that's been going on for 3 years now, I think, and it's still going on in the New York State court system. And basically, it's the case is about whether legalizing daily fantasy sports is actually illegal under the Constitution. The Constitution in New York, like a lot of other states, requires an amendment to expand gambling. There are parties in the case who have argued that DFS is gambling. That's obviously something that's been going on for years, not just in New York. And then so we have two parties, interested parties, well, more than that, interested parties entering the case. We have Rivers Casino, which has pushed back against the legalization of daily fantasy sports and of the ability of DraftKings and FanDuel, two largest DFS companies, to get into sports betting. Of course, FanDuel, we already went over, has a sportsbook in New York. DraftKings also has a deal to offer sports betting at a New York casino. And then, like I said, this just played out in Illinois, where the parent company of Rivers Casino in Illinois tried to keep FanDuel and DraftKings out of the market. So this is another instance of that coming to the fore, and kind of the maybe not, I don't know, hurt feelings between existing gaming operators and FanDuel and DraftKings. They own a huge percentage of the New Jersey sports betting market, and FanDuel just launched sports betting in PA. We'll get to that, but there's so much at stake right now that every little angle is being pursued, and this case is another example of that, where if DraftKings and FanDuel were to be considered quote unquote bad actors in New York under DFS law, then that might give somebody pause to allow them to offer sports betting.
We know that FanDuel and DraftKings, the two overwhelming early market leaders in New Jersey with sports betting, and you talked about Illinois and trying to keep them out of the market from the Rivers perspective. Originally, they were trying to push a 3-year sideline for DraftKings, and FanDuel, of course, ended up being a more limited penalty box for 18 months. Not that DraftKings and FanDuel can't get in, but there are some barriers to entry for them there. So that is the state of New York as of now, but a lot more going on in the last nearly 3 weeks since we joined you. And Eric, we have another new state to add to the equation. The New Hampshire state legislature, all 9 million of them, have legalized sports betting.
The great Granite State is on the list as of July 12th. New Hampshire has legal sports betting. It's the second state in New England to get a law all the way across the line. Rhode Island, remember, was an early adopter last year. Yeah, this new bill, looks pretty good. It has full provisions for online wagering, including remote registration. The gambling age in New Hampshire is 18 years old. There will be 10 retail locations, 5 online licenses. New Hampshire doesn't have casinos, but it does have these sort of charitable gaming facilities that will be in line for the retail licenses. The only little hiccup is the in-state collegiate ban, which is also present in New York. We didn't mention that, but these states seem to like banning action on their own colleges these days. That caught on in New Hampshire. Targeting launch maybe about a year from now, July 1st, 2020, and looking at about $11 million in revenue a year is what they're projecting. So a law on the books in New Hampshire, and looks like about a year away from legal sports betting there.
So that's New Hampshire on its way. And we had another major story go on while we were on our summer hiatus, and that is the DC Council doing what the DC Council does, Dustin, Intralot is in, but not without a whole lot of questions and scrutiny about how they got there.
Yeah, the latest was that the lottery, actually the DC Council approved Intralot, a Greek gaming company and lottery company, to be the one who offers sports betting through the lottery there. Now, this has been there's been months of controversy about this, about the subcontracting, about exactly the product that Intralot's going to introduce, which is apparently a high hold sports betting product that's not at all like sports betting.
Eric, you had the pleasure, I'll use that word, of watching most of the DC Council hearings and seeing what went on with this whole thing. And politically, it was quite the interesting situation.
Yeah, interesting. You chose that word. I was going to go amusing. There's not really a good descriptor for what happened there. It has been really fascinating to watch this unfold in DC. Anyone who's sort of watched these proceedings with some knowledge of how this normally goes can see that something is not right there, or at least there's a perception that something is not right there, which is probably just as bad in the eyes of the public. There, it seems like every week we have new reporting from the District Dig or from the Washington Post about conflicts of interest and ethical concerns with the sponsors. Another one of the council members has a cousin that just came out as connected to one of the subcontractors. Nothing about this seems like it's on the up and up. And shout out to council member Alyssa Silverman, who's been the voice of reason in this process. She ultimately was not successful in fighting this, but at least some members of the council do seem to realize that this is not right.
It'd be one thing if you're getting something awesome out of DC, right? It's going to be an awful product. And
that's where I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to say that something is foul there, but it's either ignorance of what good sports betting looks like or corruption. It's one of the two is in play. I'm not sure which one.
There could be a fair case made for some version of both based on all of the reporting that we've seen so far in DC. So they wanted a first mover advantage, and we'll see just exactly what they can do with it here. Well, Eric, we look at the state of North Carolina. You were a big believer earlier this year, and it took a while, but they finally made you look good.
God, they made me sweat for it. Yeah, we're talking about all my former states of residence this week, North Carolina and New York on the list. I thought North Carolina this bill was going to fly through earlier this year, maybe make it the first state to pass a bill in 2019. It ended up being the 7th state, which I guess bodes well for the appetite in the rest of the country, but finally got there in North Carolina. This is a tribal sports betting bill. We've talked about it before on this podcast, sponsored by Senator Jim Davis. It allows the Cherokee Nation to offer sports betting at its tribal casinos in the Appalachians. It has 3 of them. They are operated by Caesars. So Caesars has the only golden ticket into this retail-only market. Unlike their colleagues in New Hampshire and New York, lawmakers in North Carolina rejected the in-play college betting ban. So you'll be able to bet on the Heels and the Blue Devils if you go to Cherokee. And yeah, this bill still needs a signature from the governor, which is not a guarantee. He is a Democrat, and both chambers of the legislature are Republican. So maybe some partisan concerns there, but the sponsor expects a signature. Again, it had pretty broad support in the legislature. So we expect this to become law officially within the next couple of days.
North Carolina could be joining the party soon. We will see what Governor Cooper decides to do there. Well, in the interim, when we've been on our summer break, revenue numbers for the states of New Jersey and Pennsylvania both came out. Dustin, when we look at the New Jersey report, not a particularly heavy month on the sports betting calendar, and yet pretty strong returns.
Yeah, we saw just over 270 million wagered in the states, almost 10 million in revenue. Like I said, June, one of the slower months for sports betting, just the NBA finals, baseball, and then a smattering of other sports, golf, tennis, and things like that, which are popular, but not as big as, the meat of football, basketball, hockey season here in the United States. So a lot was made in the previous month in May when New Jersey actually surpassed Nevada in terms of total amount wagered. We expect that Nevada will actually take that back over in June, just because we know historically around 300 million has been wagered in Nevada in past years. So we'll see what goes on. We do expect New Jersey, just because of how much mobile betting there is in the state and the access to it. We should see New Jersey, eventually get past Nevada, on a permanent basis, but it just didn't. It's not going to happen right this second.
No, we've seen with Nevada that when Nevada has a big event going on, like March Madness or the Super Bowl, something that people tend to come to the desert to live the experience, that Nevada jumps up a bit more in revenue and handle. But we are just more than a year into the post-PASPA era, and we are already talking about having an ongoing battle between New Jersey and Nevada. It is certainly interesting. In New Jersey, Eric, FanDuel and DraftKings have been going at it since the start. FanDuel had established a pretty good lead early in 2019. DraftKings kind of clawing back in this month.
Yeah, interesting to see the gap close a little bit. The lead for FanDuel is still pretty comfortable. For comparison, it's about 4.4 million for FanDuel and 2.75 million for DraftKings. So still a gap there, but it has closed from what we've seen over recent months. I have a hunch some of that has to do with just the sports calendar itself. There are fewer people traveling to Meadowlands, which puts them, on the doorstep of FanDuel Sportsbook. So probably less foot traffic to the book, but also we're going to get into Pennsylvania here soon. But some increasing competition across the western border into Pennsylvania now.
Dustin, it was a record month for handle in the young market of Pennsylvania. They were featuring one mobile operator for the bulk of the month. So ultimately, not too bad for Pennsylvania either.
Yeah, this is the first time this could have played a role in how New Jersey's numbers came out. We have some competition, like I said. If you were living in Philadelphia, working in New Jersey, or vice versa, you were betting on a New Jersey sports betting app. Now you have that option in Pennsylvania as well. So you can sign up now at Sugar House Sportsbook and several others in the state. So yeah, we saw a record amount of handle, 46 million, which is obviously pretty small, but keep in mind, again, one operator open all month. Two operators only open for a week, and then we saw $3 million in revenue. So this is this seeing the record amount of wagers. We also saw 40% of wagers in that first month came online versus at physical sports books. Yet the latest data point where we have that we can see online betting really a big deal. If you're going to legalize it, you might as well. You have to do online. You're just wasting your time if you're only legalizing physical sports books, and it's a lesson to any state that's looking at that.
Any state in particular, Dustin, that you're looking at when you say that, and anything that is a state that borders Pennsylvania and New Jersey, perhaps?
It starts with an N and ends in a K. Sure. There's other ones too. Mississippi. They have 25 sports books, but the amount of revenue and handle in Mississippi, same way. It's just you're just not going to realize a whole lot. Like there's this whole worry about cannibalizing existing casinos and existing sports books, and all you're doing by legalizing online is creating a new revenue stream, a new way to engage bettors, people who might not come to the casino otherwise. There's in New Jersey, we know people aren't just going to Atlantic City to bet on sports. It's way more, obviously, this seems like a no-brainer. It's way easier to sign up on your phone and bet on sports. Like that seems very obvious, but it's as lawmakers consider policy around the country, it's not always that obvious.
It's become a real
Mississippi, and Mississippi launched with retail only and actually went back to its legislature this year and attempted to get mobile through, and the bill never made it out of committee. So some states are having to deal with the situation they've created. In Pennsylvania, Eric, we talked about the fact that Sugar House was the only one open for the full month, but one of the big boys is on the way into the market just this week.
Yeah, we Sugar House and Parks and Bet Rivers both joined late last month. This month we have FanDuel Sportsbook in the market officially. As of this week, they've launched. We've talked about how much they dominate the New Jersey market. There's a reason companies like Rivers are concerned about competition from folks like FanDuel. We should expect more of what we've seen in New Jersey and Pennsylvania in the coming months from FanDuel. So welcome to PA FanDuel Sportsbook.
And Dustin, we mentioned FanDuel, and one of the $64,000 questions when it comes to the Pennsylvania market has been, will we see DraftKings with a mobile presence? And it certainly doesn't look like we're any closer to that now than we were over the previous months.
Yeah, right now we have no idea of how they'd get in or if or when even. It's but I can tell you DraftKings would like to be in Pennsylvania. It's not like they're just saying, I don't want to be in Pennsylvania. Why I don't want to be in a huge state with lots of people who bet on sports and NFL fans and just general sports fans. So yeah, I don't like we're sitting here like a month and a half from NFL season. There's no path as we see it right this second to Pennsylvania. That being said, I wouldn't count them out from being in Pennsylvania either before or after NFL season. I think there's a chance DraftKings will be there, but yeah, it's DraftKings is actively looking to get in every market. They certainly don't want to just hand this market over to FanDuel and everybody else who's got a piece of it right now.
Well, FanDuel, not the only launch we're talking about in the state of Pennsylvania this week. Eric, online gaming also getting started in the Keystone State, and we know there's plenty of interplay there between sports betting and online gaming.
Yeah, this was by far the big story of the week on our sister site, Online Poker Report. We have 3 online casinos now open for business in Pennsylvania. This is another thing that's been a long time coming, part of a 2017 law. So took more than 18 months to get this off the ground, but it has happened. Hollywood Casino was the first to launch on Monday with all of the traditional casino games you'd expect to find in a casino. They're now available online. Parks and Sugar House have since joined. So Sugar House now offers online sports betting and online casino gambling in Pennsylvania. We have some online poker sites coming. The poker community is itching for this news, for the launch of a new state. It's coming, but it's still a few months out. But we have almost fully unveiled the 2017 gambling expansion in Pennsylvania. Poker is just about the last thing left.
Well, Eric, I mean, if the poker community is itching, there are topicals and creams that we could do something with this, right? We don't have to just let this happen, right?
The poker community could use some topicals and creams from time to time. For
Fair
sure.
enough. Fair enough, Eric Ramsey. Well, Dustin mentioned earlier that about 40% of Pennsylvania's revenue came from mobile last month with only one operator. And what we didn't mention in there is only one operator without the ability to use the iOS platform, without being able to do it on an Apple device. And Dustin, it looks like someone might have found a way in for those who are on an iPhone to be able to sports bet and do online gaming in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it was a big deal that you couldn't really use an iPhone or an iPad to bet on sports. Even you could. Not only was there not an app in the App Store for any of the sportsbooks that went live, there wasn't even a way to use a Safari browser on an iPhone. You would get blocked immediately and just wouldn't be able to use it. So now at least Sugar House has a workaround where you can access it via a browser. You need a piece of geolocation software, an app that will geolocate you, and then that will allow you to access it via browser. It sounds harder than it is, but it's actually a pretty decent workaround. You just have to log in instead of an app. Now, the big news about FanDuel is that it's just got the app on the App Store. It's launched yesterday. The app that was already in play for New Jersey, you can just use that, log in. It will geolocate you in Pennsylvania, and that seems like a huge advantage moving forward. And with not sure when anybody else will get in the App Store. We can go in. We could spend an entire podcast about that. But people have, the App Store has been. It's been trouble for anybody with an online gambling platform in the United States to get in. Obviously, if you had a choice, you'd be in the App Store rather than doing a workaround or not being in at all. So FanDuel has a huge advantage here in Pennsylvania, and I suspect we'll see that advantage play out in July and moving forward.
Lots of interesting developments, not just in the state of Pennsylvania, but around the country in the world of legal sports betting. For all of the latest, you can head to our website at legalsportsreport.com. You can visit us at LSP Report on Twitter. I'm Adam Candy. You can find me at Adam Candy on Twitter. 2 E's, no Y. Dustin Gauker is at Dustin Gauker. Eric Ramsey at Eric_Ramsey. Again, we hope you will subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. You can always find the LSR podcast at the LSR website and also in all of the places you generally find podcasts. Sitting in for Matt Brown, that's me, Adam. We will be back next week with more in the world of legal sports betting and daily fantasy sports. Thanks for joining us, everyone.